Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'du, fa'uzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wazzuha wal-layli iza saja ma waddaka rabbuka wa ma qala wal-akhiratu khairul laka minal ula walasawfa yu'tika rabbuka fatarza. Alam yajidka yatiman fa'awa wa wajadaka zalan fakhada wa wajadaka ailan faghna fa'ammal yatima fala takhar wa ammas sa'ila fala tanhar wa amma bi ni'mati rabbika fahaddis. Sadaqallahul azim. I recited this short chapter of the Holy Quran in the last khutbah as well, so I'll quickly read through its translation. Chapter Az-Zuha, the brightness of the day, 93 of the Holy Quran. By the brightness of the day and the night when it is still, your Lord has not forsaken you, nor is he displeased. And surely the later state is better for you than the earlier state, and soon your Lord will give you so that you will be well pleased. Didn't he find you an orphan and give you shelter? And he found you groping and he showed you the way. And he found you in want and need and he enriched you. So as regards the orphan, do not oppress him. And as regards the person who asks you for something, do not rebuke him, do not tell him off. And as regards the favor of your Lord that he has given you, you must declare and proclaim it. In the last khutbah, I discussed this chapter, which was revealed to the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, very near to the start of his mission. And I went through how it informed him that his condition in the end would be better than his earlier condition. Already by the time this chapter was revealed, Allah had helped him in his first state when he was an orphan, when he was still trying to find the right path, when he lacked resources. Allah had helped him out of that state, and now God had appointed him for the mission of prophethood and the guidance of humanity. And in this mission also, which was starting from a state of helplessness and uncertainty about the future, in this mission also, God would make him successful, just as God had made him successful previously in his individual life. And his mission would emerge from the darkness of the night into the brightness of the day. And that is the title of this chapter, Az-Zuha. As I said in the last khutbah, in the last 3 verses of this chapter, the Holy Prophet is told that after emerging from that earlier state of deprivation, he must remember those earlier times and show care and concern for those people who are still languishing in the conditions that he used to be in. As this chapter had foretold, the Holy Prophet ﷺ, at the end of his life, reached the peak of his triumph in his mission. He was now the furthest possible that you can imagine from being a helpless person. He had obtained all the guidance that he required through his revelation, and he had wealth and resources lying at his feet. And the question I want to raise in this khutbah is, did the Holy Prophet change in his character and behavior as a result of this great success and acquiring power and leadership? This point was in fact discussed long ago in the year 1874 by a scholar, a British scholar, author, and he was also a schoolmaster at the famous Harrow Public School in London. And his name was Reginald Bosworth Smith. And Mr. Smith in that year, 1874, delivered 4 lectures on Islam in London at the Royal Institution. You might remember that's the same place where they have those Christmas lectures on television. Anyhow, those 4 lectures were published then in the same year as a book under the title Mohammed and Mohammedanism. In those days, Mohammedanism was the generally used word in English for Islam. And in one of those lectures, he comes to this conclusion, and I now read out what he says. On the whole, the wonder is to me not how much, but how little, under the different circumstances, Muhammad differed from himself. He means how different he became. He says, I'm surprised by how little he differs. And then he gives the various stages of the life of the Holy Prophet. In the shepherd of the desert, in the Syrian trader, in the solitary one worshipping in Mount Hira, and in the reformer all by himself single-handed, then in the person who was exiled to Medina, and then in the acknowledged conqueror, he says, who became the equal of the Persian emperor and the Roman emperor, Bosworth Smith says, we can still trace a substantial unity. I doubt whether any other man whose external conditions changed so much, himself ever changed so less to meet them. The events are changed throughout his life, but the essence seems to be the same in all of them. And then Bosworth Smith goes on to say that there is a saying that power, in other words, acquiring power in the world, is something which puts that person to the test who acquires power. And he says it brought new temptations, and also there might be new failures which wouldn't have happened if the Holy Prophet had remained a shepherd in the desert. And he goes on to say, but happy is the man who can stand the test as well as Muhammad did. So he says power puts the man to the test, and happy would be that person who can stand that test as well as did Muhammad. So this is what Mr. Reginald Bosworth Smith said in a lecture and then published in his book. So I'll now continue. And this is just what we find when we look at the Holy Prophet's life after he had become the leader of a community and head of state at Medina. In his private life and way of living, there was no change in its complete simplicity. There are 2 separate hadiths in Sahih Bukhari, one related by Hazrat Abu Huraira and one by the Holy Prophet's wife Hazrat Aisha, which say that after Hijrah, after settling in Medina, the Holy Prophet and his family never got to eat fully to fill their stomachs for more than 3 days continuously for the rest of his life. So maybe if they got fully fed one day and the next day and the third day, but it didn't happen after that. There was no occasion when for more than 3 days they ate to the full. Now, in his appearance before other people and in dealing with other people, there was no change. Once Hazrat Umar, Allah be pleased with him, presented the Holy Prophet with a silk garment and said that he could wear it when delegations come to visit him and also wear it on Eid days. But the Holy Prophet replied that those men wear such clothes who have no share in the hereafter. Sometime later, the Holy Prophet received a silk garment from someone else, and the Holy Prophet sent it to Hazrat Umar. And Hazrat Umar came and said to the Holy Prophet, "You said that such garments are only for those who have no share in the hereafter, and now you have sent this to me." The Holy Prophet said to Hazrat Umar, "Well, you can sell it, or you can meet some other need by it. In other words, you don't need to wear it. You can sell it or use it for some other purpose." And I think that the Holy Prophet may have done this to clarify to Hazrat Umar that there is nothing wrong in principle with wearing fine clothes of this kind, or at least being in possession of them. Otherwise, if the Holy Prophet hadn't done this, Hazrat Umar might have got the wrong impression that because the Holy Prophet has refused to accept this from Hazrat Umar, therefore the use of such garments is not allowed. So the Holy Prophet himself sent it to Hazrat Umar and then said, "Well, if you don't want to wear it because of what I said, you can use it, you can sell it, you can use it for some other purpose." And some say Hazrat Umar gave it away as a gift to some relative who was a mushrik and non-Muslim. Anyhow, when the Holy Prophet used to be sitting with his companions, the Sahaba, he could not be distinguished from them. No one could tell which was the Holy Prophet unless he knew him. He had no special seat. And once it so happened, after the conquest of Makkah, that a man representing his tribe from a distant place came to see the Holy Prophet in his mosque to confirm as to what are the basic teachings of Islam. And when the man arrived, he had to ask the people in the mosque, "Which one of you is Mohammed?" Because there was nothing visible to distinguish the Holy Prophet from the other people sitting there. So when people pointed out the Holy Prophet to that man, he said to the Holy Prophet, "I am going to ask you some questions, and I am going to be hard on you in asking them, so please do not be offended with me." And the Holy Prophet ﷺ replied, "Ask whatever occurs to you." The Holy Prophet did not say, "How dare you talk to me so disrespectfully?" The Holy Prophet simply said, "Ask whatever occurs to you." And there was another incident. Once the Holy Prophet ﷺ was in a graveyard, Qabristan, and he saw a woman wailing by a graveside. Wailing means sort of crying loudly, sort of screaming, shrieking in grief. And he went up to her and said to her, "Fear Allah and be patient." The woman didn't know it was the Holy Prophet, and she said to him, "Go away. You haven't been struck by a disaster like mine. In other words, you can't understand what terrible calamity has afflicted me. So go away." And the Holy Prophet did go away quietly. He didn't say to her, "How dare you talk to me like that? Do you know who you are talking to?" Now later on, people told her that that man was the Holy Prophet. So she went to his house to apologize. And the hadith in which this is reported, says, she did not find any guard at his door. She was an ordinary person, but she had direct access to him because he had no guards at his door. And she said to the Holy Prophet apologetically, I didn't recognize you. And the Holy Prophet simply replied, patience is when the calamity first strikes. That's all he said. What he meant was that everyone, eventually in the end, after some time has passed, everyone, whoever they may be, has no choice but to accept a calamity such as death. They can't do anything about it. They have to accept it in the end. But this quality which is called patience or sabr, that quality is shown when someone accepts it in the beginning, when it strikes. So that's why he had asked her to be patient at that time when she was in the graveyard. Now it is alleged as an accusation against the Holy Prophet that the reason why he married several women after moving to Medina was that he was now head of state and he could marry many women to satisfy his desires. This was a time when Muslims were becoming prosperous and successful in their worldly lives in Medina. But the revelation to the Holy Prophet in those days directed him to say this to his wives. And I quote this from the Holy Quran in translation. If you desire this world's life and its attractive things, then I will give you a provision of those things and allow you to depart from me cordially. But if you desire Allah and His Messenger and the hereafter, then there is a great reward for those of you who do good. Chapter 33, verse 29. The Holy Prophet ﷺ wanted his wives to live the same simple life that he led. So it was not only that he himself did not change after acquiring worldly power, worldly resources and rule. He set an example to his wives to follow as well. And he put this choice to each of them separately and individually. And each of them said, no, we want to remain, we desire Allah and His Messenger and not worldly things. Even though he'd said, I'll give you some things and allow you to live nicely, cordially, without any bitterness or ill will. But still, they prefer to remain with him. In terms of courage and reliance on Allah, and not reliance on worldly resources, the Holy Prophet did not change in the least. He didn't think, now that I've got power, resources, a large number of followers, I now don't need to, I can rely on them. I've got them. Near the end of the Holy Prophet's life, what is known as the Eastern Roman Empire, this was the eastern section of the Roman Empire, which had the Middle East under its rule, countries which we now call Syria, Israel, Jordan, Egypt, etc. This Eastern Roman Empire was threatening to attack Arabia. And the Holy Prophet was raising an army to go on what became known as the Tabuk expedition, right up to the northern border of Arabia, to deter the Roman Empire. Now, many Muslims were reluctant to make this personal sacrifice to go on this expedition. Obviously, they had to leave their occupations. They'd have to use their resources as well to go along the journey to Tabuk and not knowing what would happen there. So when some of them were reluctant, a revelation came to the Holy Prophet in this connection, addressing Muslims. If you do not help him, then Allah certainly helped him when the disbelievers expelled him from Medina. And then it says, he being the second of the two, meaning that there were two of them, the Holy Prophet and Hazrat Abu Bakr. When they were both in the cave, when he said to his companion, in other words, the Holy Prophet said to Hazrat Abu Bakr, La tahzan inna Allah mana, that do not worry, do not be sad, or do not grieve, surely Allah is with us. And then that verse says, Allah then sent down his calm and tranquility on the Holy Prophet, and he gave him forces, armies, which you did not see, invisible ones, invisible strength. Chapter 9, verse 40. So the Muslims were told here that if they do not help the Holy Prophet, still Allah will help him, as he helped him when he was fleeing from Makkah to Medina with just one person with him, and being chased and pursued by their murderous enemies. The Holy Prophet did not stop relying on Allah because he now had a great number of followers and possessions and resources. He considered himself to be in the same position now, even now in the same position, needing the help of Allah, as he was when he was a refugee. And this shows that the aim and purpose of the Holy Prophet ﷺ was never to make worldly gains, because even after having got them, he didn't think that they actually mattered, or that without them he has nothing. Now, if an impostor, a false person, or a pretender had succeeded in the way that the Holy Prophet succeeded, that impostor or pretender would be desperately worried about losing his power and rule, because he would know that the pretense and deception which he tried on people, which has worked once, is not going to work again. And in a sense, we see this with elected politicians as well, that when they succeed and get elected, the first thing which strikes them is the worry of losing that power and rule, because they think, and it is actually true, that the way they succeeded and got the power, that method probably won't work again. But that is opposite to what the Holy Prophet did, that he believed that Allah would help him when he was in power, as he helped him when he was without any power. And the Holy Quran itself tells us how to handle success and victory when it comes. And as you all know, there's a very short chapter in the Holy Quran, number 110, whose title is Al-Fatah, or the victory. And the Holy Prophet ﷺ is told as follows in that chapter: when Allah's help and victory comes, and you see people entering the religion of Allah in large groups, then celebrate the praise of your Lord, فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ, and ask his protection, وَاسْتَغْفِرْهُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. He is the one who always turns to mercy. So in other words, at the height of victory, when all around you what you see is your great success, you've risen to a high position, you face no opposition, that instead of being jubilant and out of control with joy And instead of regarding yourself now as absolutely supreme and unchallengeable, in that position, instead of doing these things, you must give praise to Allah for your success and then ask Him for His protection against being misled by that success. Because success does mislead. It misleads the person who has the success into thinking too highly of himself and thinking of others as being failures and too low. So one should seek Allah's protection and turn to Him for mercy, as this surah Al-Fatah says. So we pray that if we achieve success, then may Allah not let us be carried away by that success. And may Allah not let us forget where we started. And may Allah not let us look down upon others. Ameen. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Quranil Azim. Wa nafa'na wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim. Innahu ta'ala jawadun karimun malakun barrur rahim.